I'm now going to invite Alison Peacock, who's a head teacher, but I think that's probably an understatement because, again, looking at the biography, looking at much of the work that Alison's been involved with, it's many and varied in many groups, many forums, initiating this really powerful sense and a wonderful, I love the title, the co-author, Learning Without Limits. Learning Without Limits evokes for me just a really powerful sense in which, you know, the children at your school and hopefully other schools and the teachers recognise learning takes place despite schools getting in the way. So I'd like to hear from Alison, and Alison's going to have to leave immediately after this, but we are having 5 minutes, and if people would like to ask any particular question, Alison has said that she would give 5 minutes at the end of the presentation to respond to those. So again, thank you very much, Alison. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, it's a tremendous privilege to be here, all the way through my teaching career, right from the earliest days. I've also been a bit of a sort of radical, really, I think, in terms of saying it doesn't have to be like this. Because schools are very often places where everybody within the school has to fit the organisation, instead of the organisation being somewhere that accommodates the needs and the wants and the joys of the people who inhabit it. So in my first teaching job, which was in Harlow, in a comprehensive school, at the end of my first term of teaching, I was sitting at my table and I was doing some reports on a class of children I taught a lot. I taught them English, I taught them humanities, I taught them a bit of music, because I was a primary teacher who'd gone to work in a secondary school. And my head of department came in and she said to me, "Oh, Alison, you do realise, don't you, that you can only give the children in this class a grade D?" I said, "What do you mean?" So she said, "Oh yes, that's the stream that they're in. They can't achieve more than a D. You can give them a 1 for effort, but they can't achieve more than a D." Now, there were 25 children in this class, and I knew very, very well, even though I'd only been teaching for a term, I knew very, very well that these children were all incredibly different people, all individuals, all with many, many different strengths. And to say that they all achieved a grade D, for me, felt like first had a real time in my teaching career after my only 1 term where I was up against the system and starting to say, actually, this is very wrong. We need to do something else. So ever since that point, I have been working quietly and determinedly, and am now actually, amazingly, going to be included in 3 commissions by this government. I don't know what they're doing, whether they've included me. One which is about assessment, another one which is about, it's going to be announced on Monday, about initial teacher education, and another on professional learning. And each of these bodies is right at the heart of government, looking at what can we do to make learning better. And I hope from what I tell you this morning, you will be encouraged that I've managed to kind of wheedle my way in there. Because this is all about making things better for children, not making things better for teachers. The notion of learning without limits is one of expecting the unexpected, that we shouldn't think that we can label children and know what people are capable of. As soon as we stop believing that children can surprise us, then we set so many limits on what might be possible. And throughout my career, by being open to the fact that children can surprise us, amazing things have happened. And I have met fantastic people, both children and adults actually, who have achieved so much more than they ever thought that they might. And that's often in spite of the system, not because of it. Now what's really exciting to me, apart from being involved at a national level now, is that the ideas of learning without limits are starting to go viral in schools. People are beginning to talk about the idea of learning without limits, and what they mean by that is that there's somebody recognising that to talk about ability as a fixed quantity of an amount of intelligence, for example, is tantamount to being racist. The idea of the limited ability and talking about people in terms of ability labelling is beginning to be increasingly unacceptable, which actually is amazing, because 10 years ago that wouldn't have even been the case. So I want to tell you a story now about a little girl that came to us a couple of years ago. We're a an oversubscribed primary school in Spa with nursery, and a parent contacted the school and wanted to come and meet me. And she wanted her daughter to come into our reception class. The brothers and sisters of this little girl went to the school down the road. But the head teacher of that school had begun to make it very clear that Mary wasn't going to involve with that school. The head teacher would say things like, well, you do realise that we don't have any disabled toilets in our school, and if Mary comes to our school, we'd have to change her nappy in the corridor. Now, these are totally unacceptable things to say. This is what this head teacher was doing. And this parent came to see me and she said, I would really like Mary to come to your school because she's not going to be loved in the school where her brothers and sisters are. So she came to our school, she started at our school, but when Mary arrived, she arrived with a reputation. That was a reputation that had come from her preschool. And actually, to be fair, to some degree from her family, because we were told that Mary was going to be a child that would need full-time one-to-one support, that she was going to have regular meltdowns where we'd need to have a padded room in case she had a complete tantrum and started to hurt herself and everybody else around her. That it was going to be very difficult for us to manage her behaviour, but nevertheless, Mum and Dad wanted her to be in school. So she came into school, and actually she only, in the first term, in the autumn term, she only had one major kind of tantrum event, which sticks in my mind, and that was to do with something that started at breakfast at home. And in our school, we're very much, we pride ourselves on being very child-centred, so within the reception class, there are lots of activities to do, both indoors and outdoors, and Mary started to get involved in all of these activities, except she would not write anything. She wouldn't do any kind of mark making whatsoever. She just didn't want to. She wouldn't pick up a pen, wouldn't pick up a paintbrush, wouldn't pick up a great big brush, wouldn't write in water, wouldn't write in the shaving foam, wouldn't do any kind of mark making whatsoever at all. Until the first day that she drew this. This is her first picture, and this is in the February as she arrived in our school in the September. Now, the reason I've written baseline assessment up there is because you may know that the government have said to schools that schools should assess all children coming into their school within the first 4 to 6 weeks of arriving in school and give a score to that child in order that the school can then justify the progress that children are making from being in the school. Now you can look at this in two ways. You could say, well, this is good because it's validating progress rather than looking at overall attainment. That's fine. But I've spent my whole career worrying about labels and worrying about what happens when we start to put a number against children. And so from my point of view, the idea of testing children within the first 4 to 6 weeks of coming into school could potentially lead to a whole group of children being written off from very early on on the basis of their scores are very low. And I know that any assessment that would have been done with Mary when she first came into our class, if she'd been asked to do anything involved in marking, there's no way that she would have done it, thank you very much. She would have got a very low score, which you could say, well, that's fine, because as a head teacher, you might quite pleased with Alison. You could then say, well, that's good, because look at the progress we're going to make. Because when you look at this picture, you can see the level of complexity and the level of thinking that's going on in this child's mind. This is a picture she drew the following year. In this picture, she's a superhero. And she's written a whole story to go with it, and it's all about how Mary goes out into the sea and saves everybody. Mary as a superhero is exactly what I want children to feel like. I want them to feel like they are champions. And I don't want anything to happen within our school or other schools that stops children feeling like that, and being able to be like that. In many schools, as you will probably know, Mary wouldn't have had the choice as to whether she was going to start making marks or not in her first term of school. Many schools would not stand back and wait. They would not keep that invitation, that open offer. They would start to say, this is all about power. I'm the leader, I'm the boss, I'm the teacher, you're the child. I've told you you need to do something, get on and do it. There's no physical reason why you shouldn't, so just do it. You're just being naughty. Now for me, that's absolutely, totally misses the point. Because by constantly offering the invitation, we were there ready to allow ourselves to be surprised when that first picture arrived. And I can still remember the day, it was done on one of those whiteboards with a black felt pen. I can still remember the day when Mary brought that picture round to me because it was photocopied, and she stood in the doorway with Lynn, who works in the reception class. And I was able to say, wow, what an amazing picture. And I immediately put a copy on the wall in my office. This is determine. So within a culture of ideas, things like let's buy a double-decker bus on eBay because we need to extend our library is an absolute possibility. So this is the bus that you see here. This is our library. When we had Ofsted in 2009, the Ofsted inspector said, well, you could make the library more interesting. We thought, all right. And we hadn't got any more space in the building. And the suggestion came up, why don't we buy a bus? So this is a crazy idea in case you're thinking, oh, that's great, I'll get a bit more space, I'll buy a bus. But essentially it's a tin can, and you do need to heat it and light it and all the rest of it. And we've got internet on there. But it became a special place very quickly. Upstairs on the bus, Mary is one of the children who at lunchtimes now goes to a nurture club on the bus. And what the benefit of that is, because she can see all that's going on in the playground, because the other side of where that bus is the main playground at the school. She can see what's going on. They can hear some of what's going on, so they're actually in a nurtured space. And most recently, Mary constructed a model that she's incredibly proud of, that she did every day coming back to Nurture Club. The materials were always there, people were always there to help her. Other children were there that she could play with. She was kind of distant and yet part of the playground. So that idea that it's about making things work for everybody is at the heart of learning about limits. Essentially, this is what it's about. If, as teachers, we believe that what we do makes a difference, that we can influence the future, that we can impact on people's lives, then the job becomes the most amazing job in the world. If, on the other hand, we think as teachers it's our job to finally measure somebody, put them on a tracking system, constantly be held accountable as to whether or not they've stayed on the tracking system or fallen off, then actually the job is a very different job. It's one of pushing people rather than enabling them. My sense as a head teacher, and hopefully as someone who's trying to influence the debate at a national level now, is that we need to think differently. Within English society, we perhaps don't always want to stop and think about these things, but within English society, we are very, very conscious of class. It's with English people who talk about knowing your place, not getting above yourself. This leads to an approach too often in schools where swathes of children are written off on the basis of what they look like, where they live, the way that they speak, their background, their disability. All these kinds of things mean that people write off swathes of children. We've lost the slides. The whole point is that we want to make sure that as a profession we start to think differently. And so the work of learning about limits is saying not that ability is fixed and that everything has to stay as it is at the start, but what can we do to enable the future to be in our hands and make a difference? Because I didn't come into the job of teaching to just say, oh well, this is all that we can do. I came into the job of teaching because I wanted to change the world, a bit like you do. And that's an exciting thing to do. I'm being waited for 5 minutes. When we've got the power back, I really would like to show you some pictures. We're working on it.
Who's the person here who's going to do it?
It's just that I just want to talk to you about Alice. So I'll tell you without pictures, and we'll see if we can get the meaning. We have a little girl currently now in year 2 class with Down syndrome, Alice. And the pictures that I want to show you are pictures of drawings that she did when she was in year 1. We were all very excited when she did these drawings because they were drawings of Grandma and Grandpa, and she started to get enough strength in her hand to begin to use the pen and to begin to start to write her name. So this was all very exciting because you haven't done this before. And we went, as soon as she did the first picture, we went to the door and we showed to the mum, and Mum was like, oh, this is amazing, this is amazing. The next day she did a picture of Grandpa, again, it was amazing, it was amazing. However, when she got into year 2, I think the whole transition from year 1 to year 2 was quite difficult, and she found it all very, very strange, and she decided she wasn't going to write anymore, she wasn't going to do any mark making anymore, she wasn't going to do anything in her books, and she was going to swipe anything off the table that anybody would put in front of her to help her try and write. She didn't want to do it. The way that we got through this brilliantly is that it's constantly about how we find a way through and how we understand this child. And it was about what can we do to give Alice a reason to want to write again. And we hit upon the idea, one of our staff has got a chocolate Labrador dog called Peggy. So we thought, why don't we see if Alice would like to invite Peggy to come into school? So we asked Alice if she liked dogs, and oh yes, she liked dogs. And would she like to invite Peggy? She absolutely would. And so that very afternoon, she sat with the teacher and wrote a letter to Peggy, which was, the teacher wrote the sentences and Alice wrote over the top. And then the letter went home to Peggy the dog. The next morning, when Alice came to school, in the register, she was sitting on the carpet with all the children, in the register was a letter addressed to Alice. When Alice opened the letter, there was a photograph of Peggy the dog reading Alice's letter. Not really, this was just a So then Peggy the dog wrote to say, "Dear Alice, thank you very much for your time. I would love to come into school today." And then of course all the other children were really excited and saying, "Thank you, Alice. Peggy's going to come and visit." And Peggy came in that afternoon. And this will not always work. There's no toolkit that you can have that says first write your letter to a dog and then get your dog to come and visit. But in this instance, what happened for Alice was that somehow that unlocked something in her. She saw again what was the purpose. Peggy came to visit. And in fact, even just a couple of weeks ago before half term, we had a visit from Minister Mick Gibb, who came into school. And when he came into the Year 2 classroom, there was Alice doing her handwriting practice alongside everybody else in the classroom. That wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for the idea about Peggy. The principle being, not to say what's wrong with the child, but to say what can we do differently to enable the child. And this is exactly what I believe is important within our schools. So, I'm sorry you haven't been able to see the pictures, but it's important to me that schools all over the country start to think about these issues and start to view people differently. We need, I think, in the widest context, to reject the notions of fixability, fixed mindset, fixed thinking, to say, who knows what can happen when we believe. Thank you very much.
Okay, could I just say thank you very much, Alison. Thank you very much for sort of seamlessly carrying on there, regardless of the title. It was very, very good of you, and much appreciated. And your descriptions did provide some valuable pictures. Just before I open the floor for 5 minutes for questions, I would just like to comment on this idea of learning without limits. It's again, connected with this idea of, measuring anybody, measuring children in particular, doesn't help them grow. And an environment where they feel safe and able to contribute is very much a place where people can grow. And we do recognise, and again, I think Alison has illustrated this very, very clearly, as a head teacher and a practicing teacher, that we know schools have significant learning difficulties. And the children are there to help them overcome their learning difficulties. And that head teacher initially, who said she can't come in because she would have to be changed in the corridor, really does need nurturing. And he needs nurturing to understand it is not his right to keep somebody out, a child out. That child has a right to be there and make the contributions that the children were making and growing as a result of those contributions, not just themselves, but also all the children around them. So thanks very much, Alison. Are there any particular questions? Now listen, my eyesight, so you have to put your hand up with a bell almost. If you just read the three, thank you very much.
I just wanted to say, last night we saw a wonderful film of Alison's school that Richard had done, and you perhaps should say where people can get it if you've not got time to see it. And it was brilliant because all the things you were talking about were really there in practice. And I'm honoured because I was a visitor to your school.
Thank you for that.
I've taught for 42 years, and I'm simply appalled that schools aren't all like yours. It's so obvious.
Thank you for that, Susie. So there is a school, there is a video that Richard, the anti-bullying.
No.
Sorry, there's two.
There's one the school which is going up in the Anti-Bullying Alliance, but there's also 3 films that World Inclusion have made about inclusion working in 2015, and they'll be up on the World Inclusion website next week. At 2 o'clock we're going to show some extracts for those who didn't see them last night.
Okay, thanks for the question. Is it a stick I can see?
Yes, that represents me.
Oh.
Tara from the Alliance for Inclusive Education. Whenever I go to schools, I always ask about what the school does to support the building of relationships between young people. I'd like to know what your school does and what you think schools should do.
Okay, so in terms of relationships, we call ourselves a listening school. Every week, all the children from year 1 through to year 6 and all the staff meet together in mixed age groups for 15 minutes, subgroups, in all the classrooms across the school, and there's one on the bus and one in the hall. The children lead the discussions, and these are mixed age groups where anything that people are thinking about or need to decide as a community, it's aired in those meetings. And the point behind that is that it's really important for our older children to remind themselves of what it's like to be 6, and it's important for our 6-year-olds to listen to our older children. It's important for all our staff to listen to all our children. So that sense of valuing everybody having a voice is really important. But also, because we don't ability group, and we don't label children, and we don't talk about children in terms of numbers, and we're not saying, well, all the 3C children do this, or the hedgehogs go over there, and the people go over here. We don't do any of that. We don't talk in those terms. The children are not ranked one against another. And that's really important because they value that sense of everybody is the part that we do.
Thank you very much. We've got time for just one more question. Quick question, anybody? Lisa.
Hi, Alison. Thank you for your contribution, and I really enjoyed it. I was here last night and saw the film, Richard's film, and it provoked many feelings. One was that I wanted to take the film and take it back to my local authority and insist that it was the main presentation at the Headteachers Forum, because it's just not happening in the local authority in the way that it's happening in your school. And I really applaud your courage, because I think you do need to be courageous in these times, to stick by your philosophy and learning without limits, and absolutely refuse to be bullied into league table-led provision, and head teachers who say, I would love to include this person, but do you know what it will do to our results? As shocking and appalling, just disrespect and lack of entitlement for those young people, and their entitlement to attend their local school, irrespective of any of those issues that are being imposed from outside or inside. But I wanted to take my kids, my own children, and put them in your school, because I feel very sad about the offer that my children are having. And I want to come and teach in your school, and I definitely want to come and visit. So,
well, I don't think that necessarily was a question, but a valuable comment. I'm going to give you a response.
Okay, my question is, how do we do it? How do we spread the word? I know you're at government level, but I'm not feeling it at my local level.
No, and it won't, because I mean, literally, this is a work in progress, and as well as being courageous, I'm being subversive. I'm just opening up amongst friends, because I'm telling you like it is. You know, I've got a seat at the table, which is a start. Brilliant. But as all of you will know, that changing attitudes is very, very hard. And what I do, I speak at a lot of conferences and go all over the country, and I'm beginning to work internationally, and what I do is I constantly talk about children like Alice and Mary I talked to you about today, because these are stories of hope. And actually those head teachers who are worried about league tables also sit up and listen when they think, oh, hang on a minute, so those children are achieving more than they were expected to, well, that would look good on my data. So it's about trying to find a way through. I would just say before I finish, or before I go, I've got the pictures. These are Alice's pictures of Grandpa and Grandma. I just wanted to share with you because they're so lovely. This is Alice. Having got through all that swipe and I can't do this, I'm not going to be in year 2. Absolutely now in the heart of year 2. And I love that so much. So really important. But I do just want to say to you, I am pulling together stories to create a new book that I'm writing. When I say I'm writing, I've already written the title so far. It's supposed to be written by October. But I would be really, really pleased to hear from anybody who is able to include some stories that bring to life these issues about the importance of not labelling and what can happen when limits are lifted. So I don't know whether via Richard there's a way of doing that, but if you feel you have a story that you would like to share, then I would absolutely love to hear it, because I think the whole world needs to get these stories in order